Hello and welcome back to the Florida Aviation Network. Today we're broadcasting live and in the clear from the Aerospace Center for Excellence at the Lakeland Linder Airport in Lakeland, Florida. And thank you for joining us for the 50th anniversary of the FUN Aerospace Aerospace Experience. So it's great to be here at Lakeland. Everyone here is here at the campus because they want to be, so you see a lot of smiles on people's faces as you walk around the campus. Everyone is enjoying looking at what the vendors have to offer, looking at airplanes, visiting old friends, making new friends, and the like. And some of them even come by the Florida Aviation Network temporary studio that we have in the Central Florida Aerospace Academy education building here. And there are a lot of forums to improve your knowledge and help you increase your education about aviation. So it's just great to have us here. And as usual, the Florida Aviation Network lines up a number of very interesting people to whom that we'll engage with an interview and learn more about their organization or more about what they do and the like. So you probably saw the last interview with Mr. Kuntz, one of the air show performers, and today we got a whole bunch of more interviews lined up. And joining me today is Mr. Scott Severen with the LAMA organization. Scott, thank you so much for joining us today. It's good to have you with us.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much.
Good to have you back again. You said you were here before a number of years ago, but now you're finally back again.
Yeah, you bet.
And there's probably a lot of folks in our audience today that are not sure they remember what LAMA is or what they do. So it's an acronym standing for?
Sure, Light Aircraft Manufacturers Association.
Light Aircraft Manufacturers Association. So this is not the Cessnas and the Pipers and the Beechcraft. This is other aircraft.
This is LAMA. We were founded in 1984, and back in 1984, we were involved with the development of airworthiness and operating standards for ultralight aircraft. And as time evolved to more present day, we've become involved in the light sport aircraft manufacturing community. Have been involved in the development of the ASTM standards. LAMA and the board members were actively involved with the Aviation Rulemaking Advisory Committee that created the whole light sport and sport pilot airman regulation programs. And so through that, we represent manufacturers that operate through self-declarative means of compliance for design and operating throughout the world, not just the United States, but we've got many members in Europe as well.
Wow. So Scott speaks from a position of authority and knowledge. He has been on the board of directors for LAMA, the Light Aircraft Manufacturers Association, for a number of years, and just recently risen to the chairman of the board of directors, the president of the board of directors, and CEO of the organization.
Yes, that's correct.
And so you're now celebrating 40 years in existence this year.
40 years this year,
That's
yes.
amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. Almost as old as FUN, huh?
Oh yes, no kidding.
And you started. I think this is interesting. It started way back when ultralights came out, and that's 40 years ago when we started first seeing ultralights.
Yes, back in the 80s, right?
Okay, wow, that's a great. And
right.
so LAMA is a trade association then for light aircraft manufacturers.
You bet.
Trade association. Okay.
You bet.
Profit or non-profit?
A non-profit association. You bet.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you represent these firms that make light aircraft and are involved with the FAA in rulemaking or that apply to light aircraft and standards.
That's correct. And so we work to represent the interests of the manufacturers, certainly recently through the Mosaic process, as this is a whole rewrite of a whole different approach to how FAA regulates the design and the construction of light sport aircraft. And so LAMA and the board members have been feverishly working, like many have who will be affected by the Mosaic, to help the FAA, provide comments to the FAA to ensure that this new regulation that affects the manufacture and operation of light sport aircraft is beneficial to the public and to the manufacturers.
Sure.
So the NPRM that was released, the Mosaic, it was a document 300 and something pages long. So it was more than just a Sunday morning paper read. It took all of the trade associations, of course, spent a bunch of time going through the document to try to understand the complexities as you would expect there would be in such a document.
Now, the Mosaic, I think it's an acronym, if I'm not mistaken, stands for something long. I don't remember what all it is.
Yes, modernization of...
Something, something.
Yes.
Okay. But it was a document that was released by the FAA. Did you have any input into the authoring of that document, or was it all the FAA that came out with this?
Well, the FAA created the NPRM, the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, and when that goes out, then they solicit comments from the public. And so as an association, and individuals as well, then made comments back to made a submission to that. And so LAMA, of course, made a submission back in several areas that discussed some of the proposed rules that the FAA had put forth for that. Mosaic proposes to amend rules for the manufacturing and the certification and the operation, the maintenance, and the alteration of light sport aircraft, which are some areas that are a little bit different from general aviation aircraft. Particularly alterations are one area that for a general aviation aircraft, oftentimes you get a 337 or a field approval to make an alteration or something like that. In light sport, it's a little different setup. You've got to get manufacturer approval to alter the aircraft. So there are many nuances in the light sport world that are a little different than the Part 23 world, and so we're addressing those.
So it's not type certificated airplanes like Piper and Beech and Cirrus and the like, and it's not experimental, it's somewhere in the middle. Is that a way of saying it, or not?
No, that's very good. That's very good. LAMA members are manufacturers that comply with safety regulation through self-declarative means.
Self-declarative, okay.
Right. So that means that they're not type certificated, they're non-TC'd. So that's a little different spectrum of the aviation community, and that doesn't mean that they don't meet airworthiness standards, but the ASTM standards are standards that are devised by industry and accepted by the FAA, so they're consensus standards. Clearly, it makes good sense if you're going to regulate someone, you should have their input to get an effective process. And so the ASTM process does that. Once the ASTM committees create a proposed rule or a set of regulations, then the FAA reviews that, and then they'll accept that or reject that, but typically they accept that. And then the aircraft manufacturers design to the ASTM standards that are being created, and then they declare that they meet the design standard. So it's self-declarative in that sense, versus the FAA coming in with inspectors and spending a bunch of time and expense to prove the compliance.
That's probably one of the best explanations I've had for understanding how this works, because it's always baffled me in 50 years of flying. So I fly a Cessna or a Cirrus or a Beechcraft or a Piper, and I know that the manufacturer of that airplane had to comply with a type certificate issued by the FAA, and FAA inspectors had the opportunity to go and inspect in that aircraft. I know some of my friends are flying experimental aircraft, home builts, and they have built them themselves. They're not a manufacturer. I mean, they're a manufacturer of their airplane, but they're not a manufacturer of all kinds of airplanes, but they build one for themselves, and they have to meet standards and have FAA inspection. But somewhere in the middle there is manufacturers who build light sports who say, my aircraft that I've manufactured complies with these ASTM standards. Not a type certificate, but an ASTM standard. So I am self-declaring that my aircraft that I'm manufacturing, that I sell to you or to me, meets these standards. So it's a little different than type certificated, and it's somewhat different from experimental. I see it in the middle, but maybe it's not exactly the middle.
Well, no,
It's
that's fair.
certainly
In the middle, probably closer to government oversight. The FAA certainly audits the manufacturers for their processes and for their documentation. So it's not just I say I do this and it is so.
Yeah. Okay.
We're subject to FAA oversight, certainly.
As you would expect.
As
That's
you would
good.
expect, and you'd want. I mean,
Yeah.
the public would want
Yeah.
that.
So some of the manufacturers that are members of LAMA, I guess I'm at a blank, drawing a blank. Who are some of the aircraft manufacturers that are part of the organization?
Sure. Jetson, which is a new one of the ultralight eVTOLs that's coming about, popular in Italy, and they're coming to the United States. Evolution Aircraft, Sling Aircraft.
Sling, I've heard of them.
Light sport, your scale wings. You may have seen them on the ground. They make a beautiful replica P-51 that's made of carbon fiber, and in the molds are every rivet and dimple. It looks like a metal-built aircraft, but it's all carbon. A beautiful piece of work. Aeropup, a Sky Leader, another light sport. Jabiru aircraft out of Australia. Engines as well. Jabiru manufactures engines. Rotax, one of the most popular engines that supports the light sport industry. Super Petrol, a fascinating bi-wing amphibious aircraft. A&M Airsport, the lift aircraft, another. You've seen them out here on the grounds at the Innovation Showcase. That is an ultralight eVTOL with 18 electric motors and 18 propellers, so that you can fly with very little training, very safely and competently. Pivotal Aero, another one of these ultralight eVTOL companies. They're based in California and are doing big things in industry and with the government. Aerotrek is a real popular light sport. Tail Dragger. Porto Aviation is a member from Europe that makes an aircraft that's approaching 200 miles an hour on a Rotax engine. That doesn't fit light sport as it currently is written, but when it comes into the United States, as Mosaic evolves, then it will allow aircraft with much more capability than light sport aircraft presently have in the United States. TL Ultralights, Sensenich propellers, they're quite a list of.
So more than just aircraft manufacturers.
Sure, products as well,
products
and service providers,
yeah.
and Banterra Aircraft Finance. We've got service providers to the industry that all support and make the industry healthy. It's an
Indeed.
ecosystem, right?
Indeed, and propel it towards success.
Yes.
Indeed. Well, that's good, and I'm sure LAMA has a lot to do with that because having been a trade association, it is in your interest. Your interest is the interest of the manufacturers that you represent to make them successful and make the whole industry successful.
You bet.
Sounds like you've had some good success with that.
Well, yeah, we think so. As a part of the comments that we submitted to the FAA, there are several areas that we wanted to make sure were tailored more to the light sport aircraft, and some of those areas where our aerial work, we'd like to include aerial work that includes aerial tours for light sport aircraft. Certainly light sport aircraft are real popular in the training environment, and that training environment is a much more rigorous environment than an aerial tour environment would be, and so we've made a well-documented proposal to accept aerial tours for light sport aircraft. Also, another interesting area is aerial work for powered parachutes and trikes. Trikes, you may be familiar with, are these hang glider-like wings that have a chariot underneath. That is a very popular style of flying, real popular in Europe and becoming more and more popular here in the United States. So there should be an opportunity for aerial work for those types of aircraft, we believe. And along with that, then commercial ratings for the pilots that fly powered parachutes and trikes, because there is commercial work that those vehicles, those type of aircraft can engage in that would reduce costs over current technology that's out there that's operated through commercial certifications. There's some new noise limitations that have been introduced in the NPRM, and presently the fleet of light sport aircraft are typically much quieter than the existing general aviation. So we're sensitive that we don't create regulation just to create regulation. It seems like that is not appropriate because there's really not a problem to fix. So why create? Whenever you find a solution and to solve a problem, it always creates new problems, right? So success occurs when the problems you create are smaller than the ones that you solve.
That's good. That's a good way of recognizing
Well,
it.
I mean,
like
that's
that,
been
Scott.
my experience over life, right?
Indeed.
And so if there's not a problem, maybe it's best sometimes try not to solve it if it doesn't exist. And also another area with your experience in the general aviation world is light sport repairman. The ability to be able to repair aircraft is a little bit different than general aviation aircraft. And there's an outstanding training program in place now in the United States that trains repairmen, light sport aircraft repairmen, LSRM is the acronym for that, and the inspectors. And there's an FAA approved training program to create these mechanics. And there has been some suggestion to do away with that and bring all the light sport aircraft industry into the traditional aviation maintenance fold. And the difficulty with that is that light sport aircraft have new technologies in them that are not broadly known, that are known to these specifically trained light sport repairmen. And the current structure allows for modules where you can learn about trikes that we mentioned, you can learn about powered parachutes, you can learn about fixed wing or inflatable wing. And these are all very varied disciplines that a traditional A&P may not understand without further education. And we've got all that education already existing. So we think it's real important to keep what is working, particularly since there's no documentation that shows it's not effective. In fact, the documentation shows it's very effective because they're very specifically trained to maintain the fleet.
Wow, so LAMA really has a great mission here, not just promoting light sport aircraft, but also kind of the caretaker of the technology and the repairs and the like. I can see all that. Scott, before we finish up here, we've got just a few minutes left. I wanted to go back to an acronym that you used, Mosaic and NPRM, and then light sport. So light sport we often refer to as LSAs, those are light sport aircraft, and as the rules stand right now, there's a certain weight limit, number of passengers, certain limits as to what these aircraft can be, beyond which they have to be type certificated. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's very good, yes.
Right. And the Mosaic effort, which was started by the FAA almost a year ago now, and they put out an NPRM, a Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, which says, the FAA says, we're going to make out these rules, but before we do issue these rules, we want public input. So we put out a notice, right?
Correct.
And so that's what we've gone through that notice and gathered comments that were all due by January, and now the FAA is evaluating them to decide. But the whole Mosaic effort was to expand the LSA envelope to include aircraft of higher weight, more capability, more passengers, and the like, making your industry explode.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so
open.
Your effort in this is integral to making this successful, and you got a big stake in this. I can see that, and
certainly.
And the like. So LAMA made comments to the NPRM. I'm sure other individual manufacturers did.
Sure.
The public did. I mean,
Sure.
I read part of it. It was a little bit beyond my.
Pretty daunting.
Yeah, 300 pages is tough for me to read unless I'm trying to go to sleep at night. But so this whole effort is going to conclude here sometime next year, when they will issue then the final rule.
That's correct.
Incorporating Mosaic and expanding LSA. So this is really amazing.
It's real exciting times. Yeah,
It is.
later in 2025 is when the NPRM should become rule. But another quite quick part of that is that hopefully it goes quick. We mentioned the ASTM standards that the aircraft are designed to, and those have to be created. So that can take 6 months to create that. So even once the rule comes out, there's going to be a period of time after that so for the standards to be created so that the manufacturers can then design and build to the accepted standards.
So we're not going to have the new LSAs in place in 2025. It might be late 2025 or 2026.
Well, it might be.
Really? Yeah.
I
well,
mean,
everyone's eager to do it. So
everyone, and so you can guess, but there's still, the devil is in the details.
Indeed
So.
it is. Indeed it is. Well, Scott, this has been fascinating. I've learned so much about LAMA and light aircraft manufacturing and your role. I applaud what you and your organization are doing.
Thanks so much.
Best wishes for you at the helm of the organization.
Yeah, thanks so much.
And flying one as well. So thank you for joining us. So, and thank you for joining us this morning. This is Florida Aviation Network, broadcasting live in the clear. I'm one of the hosts, Ron Timmermans, and I hope you'll stick around and join us for the next interview to come about shortly.